Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today we're going deep on a character from Andor.
Yeah, Andor.
Brasso.
Oh, yeah.
So for some of you out there listening, you might recognize Brasso. Maybe you've seen him around. And for others, you might be meeting him for the very first time. So whether you're getting ready for season 2 or just kind of, discovering Andor, this is going to be the episode for you. We have a ton of really great information, and we're going to find out why this character resonates with so many fans.
That's right.
So we've gathered information on his life, on Ferrix, his relationships, and his key moments. So that is our mission today, to really kind of unpack all that and understand Brasso's place in Andor and the greater Star Wars universe.
Yeah, sound good.
That sounds good.
Okay, so like I said, we're on Ferrix. It's under Imperial control.
Yeah.
And Brasso is a grappler.
Right.
So what exactly does a grappler do, and what does that tell us about Brasso's life? Right. Well, being a grappler really defines Brasso's connection to Ferrix. I mean, he works in the salvage yards, tearing apart old starships.
Yeah.
We're talking big, heavy, physical labor. He's a working class guy through and through. And I think for the viewer, it establishes Brasso as someone who's really rooted in his community. And we see that throughout the show.
Okay, so we kind of get this picture, right, of this working class guy. He's got this hard job.
Right.
He lives on Ferrix.
Yep.
Now, within this setting, he's got this really close bond with Cassian Andor. And at the point where our story starts, Cassian's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Around 5 BBY.
Okay.
So, for context, for some of you listening out there, this is just a few years before the events of Rogue One.
Gotcha.
And we're seeing the very beginnings of the rebellion. We're seeing these early stirrings.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about their relationship at this stage.
Yeah, so even with Cassian being gone, their friendship it's clear it's a strong one, I mean, Cassian's adoptive mother, Maarva, is really worried about him. She's suspicious of his friends and what he's doing. But this prompts Brasso to look for him, right? He goes out and looks for his friend.
Yeah.
And for the viewer, I think that immediately shows you, okay, this is a loyal guy.
Yeah, he's not just a casual friend.
He's not just a casual friend. He cares about Cassian.
Right.
And he feels responsible for him. And that kind of responsibility plays out throughout the whole show.
Absolutely. And that responsibility and that loyalty, that becomes even more apparent when Cassian returns after that whole incident on Morlana 1.
Oh, yeah.
And he shows up injured, and he asks Brasso to lie for him.
Right.
So tell me, what unfolds and what does that reveal about Brasso's character?
Well, what I think is interesting is that Brasso is immediately willing to help. He doesn't even question Cassian.
Yeah.
Cassian just says, hey, we were drinking, we fell asleep at your place, and that's the alibi? Easy, right? But Brasso takes it a step further. He starts making up this story about how they were both drunk and clumsy at his place. And that conveniently explains Cassian's wounds,
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy whose life is about hard work and not really about, being sneaky.
Right.
He's thinking ahead, he's coming up with solutions.
And that really shows that depth of commitment to his friend.
Absolutely. He's not just agreeing, he's actively trying to protect Cassian.
Yeah, and he's good at it too.
Right.
But that loyalty, that gets tested when the Pre-Mor officers show up to arrest Cassian.
Oh, yeah.
So what does Brasso do in that moment?
Well, this is where you really see Brasso thinking on his feet, I mean, instead of just jumping into a fight or panicking, he uses what he knows.
Right.
He's a grappler, he knows how to use tools, he knows how to use his environment. So he sabotages their tack pod.
Sure.
He attaches a big heavy chain to it. And this is all happening while they're distracted, by the way. Nobody notices. And again, I think it emphasizes that he's a practical guy. He's not some kind of, warrior.
Yeah.
He's a guy who uses what's around him. He uses his skills.
Uses his surroundings. He's a survivor.
Exactly.
But that sabotage, it has some pretty big unintended consequences.
Yeah, unfortunately it does.
Tell me what happens during the confrontation with the officers.
So you have Cassian, you have Luthen Rail, who's the guy Cassian's trying to sell this stolen Starpath unit to.
Right.
And then you have the officers. Things are tense, everyone's on edge.
Yeah.
And one of the officers tries to take off in the tack pod, but because of that chain, the one Brasso attached,
Yeah.
it crashes.
Wow.
Tragically, the officer, North-3, is killed, and suddenly Brasso, this guy who is just trying to help his friend escape,
Right.
he's indirectly responsible for a death.
Yeah, it's that whole butterfly effect.
Right. One little thing can change everything.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think about all the choices that people are making in this world, the moral complexities,
Yeah.
and how those choices can have these huge ripple effects.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And our sources talk about Brasso having blood on his hands.
Mm.
How does he react to that?
Well, I think his immediate reaction is very telling.
Okay.
He goes to a bar and he has a drink.
Right.
He's clearly troubled. He's not used to this kind of weight.
No, he's not a soldier.
No, he's a working man. He's not someone who's comfortable with violence. And you see the human cost of this conflict,
Yeah.
even for someone who's not, actively fighting. And it's interesting because all this happens while Cassian escapes with Luthen.
Yeah, he kind of leaves Brasso behind to deal with everything.
Right. He gets away, and Brasso is left with the aftermath.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So after Cassian leaves, Brasso kind of takes on this role of caring for Maarva alongside Bix Colleen.
Right.
So what's the atmosphere like on Ferrix at this time?
Well, with the Empire kind of solidifying their control over Ferrix, it's definitely a more tense environment. You see a lot of fear and anxiety in the community.
Right.
People are walking on eggshells around the stormtroopers, around the Imperial officers,
Right.
and then you see it even more clearly when Bix gets detained.
Right.
It shows you how even someone who's not actively rebelling can become a target if they're even associated with someone like Cassian.
Yeah. No one's safe.
No one's safe.
And in the middle of all this, Maarva's not doing well. She's nearing the end of her life.
Right.
And what role does Brasso play in those final moments?
He stays by her side. He's a comforting presence. He's there to help in any way he can. And in her final moments, Maarva records this incredibly powerful funeral speech.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really impactful. And she specifically entrusts Brasso with a message for Cassian.
Okay.
And that tells you a lot about the trust she has in him.
Yeah, absolutely.
She sees him as a link to her son.
Okay, so we know that message becomes super important later on.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get there, Brasso goes to B2EMO, also known as B, regarding matters of grave importance. So what's going on there?
I think that scene really shows Brasso's commitment to both Maarva and Cassian. Even though Cassian's gone,
Yeah.
he's still looking out for the people that Cassian cares about. And going to B, this droid, it suggests that he understands that B has these unique abilities.
Right.
And maybe those abilities can help fulfill Maarva's wishes. So it shows a quiet determination,
Yeah.
to honor Maarva's memory. He's not just going to let it go.
And we see Brasso involved in Maarva's funeral arrangements. He's helping the daughters of Ferrix, making sure B's there.
Right.
And there's that really kind of touching moment after Maarva's passing between Brasso and the droid. What happens there?
Yeah, B is obviously really affected by Maarva's death. It's a huge loss.
Yeah.
And Brasso, despite that tough exterior, he shows a lot of compassion. He stays the night at the Andor house just to be with B, to comfort the droid.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And it shows that there's this depth to him. He's not just, gruff and tough.
Right.
There's a lot of empathy there, even for, a droid.
That's really cool. And it shows, what was that relationship like?
Right.
Between Varav and Brasso. They were very close.
Clearly very close. And he cares about her belongings.
Yeah.
Even after she's gone.
Absolutely. And then eventually Cassian comes back.
Yeah.
And he gets Maarva's final words through Brasso. Tell me about that encounter.
It's pretty clandestine. They meet in a tunnel.
Okay.
Pegla sets it up. It shows you just how dangerous things are,
Right, yeah.
They can't just meet out in the open. And it's in that tunnel that Brasso tells Cassian everything Maarva wanted him to know.
Yeah, that's a really powerful scene.
Oh, yeah. And the message itself, it's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so walk me through it. What does Maarva say?
Okay, so she says, tell him none of this is his fault. It was already burning. He's just the first spark of the fire.
Wow.
Right? He knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel. And when the day comes when those two pull together, he will be an unstoppable force for good. Tell him I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong.
Wow. Those are some heavy words.
Yeah.
So how does Cassian take all that?
You can see it hits him hard. I mean, this is his mother's last message to him.
Right.
And it's full of love, but also this kind of call to action. It's
Yeah.
like she's giving him permission to fight.
Okay. Does Brasso try to talk him out of anything?
He does. He tries to convince Cassian not to go after Bix right away.
Okay.
He's worried about him. He knows it's dangerous.
Right.
But Cassian's determined. He has to save Bix.
Okay, so they have different paths.
Yeah, I mean, they're both fighting in their own way.
That's a good point. So then we get to Maarva's funeral.
Right.
This is a huge event. It really kind of sets things off on Ferrix.
Oh, yeah.
What role does Brasso play in all that?
He's part of the honor guard.
Okay.
He's carrying the funerary stone.
Wow.
So he's right there in the middle of this procession.
Yeah.
And it shows, again, his importance in the community.
Right.
You know, he's not just a friend to Cassian, he's someone everyone respects.
And it's during that procession that we hear Maarva's speech, right?
Yeah.
The one she recorded.
They play it for everyone to hear.
Yeah, it's a huge moment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it impacts Cassian, but it also really affects Brasso, right?
Absolutely. I think for him, it's a turning point.
Okay.
He really sees the Empire for what it is.
The evil.
Yeah. You know, he sees the people's reaction to the speech, the solidarity, and then the Empire's response. It's like everything comes into focus for him.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly.
And then it all explodes, right?
Yeah.
The tension boils over. What starts the riot?
Well, you have this Imperial officer, Venestigo,
Right.
and he's not happy about the speech.
Right.
He tries to shut it down.
Wow. And then he attacks B, who's broadcasting it.
What?
Yeah, he goes after the droid.
Wow.
And I think for the people of Ferrix, that's it.
Yeah, it's like the final straw.
That's the breaking point.
Yeah, and what does Brasso do?
He fights back.
Okay.
Like everyone else.
Yeah.
He's defending his community.
Right.
It's not just about Cassian anymore. It's about everyone.
And we see Wilmon Pak, who, just to remind everyone, his dad was taken by the Empire. He makes a really kind of desperate move.
Yeah. Wilmon, driven by grief and rage, he throws this makeshift bomb.
Oh, no.
It's an act of desperation, but it leads to this chain reaction.
Wow.
Explosions, chaos, casualties, and it really highlights the pain and anger that's been simmering under the surface.
Absolutely.
You know, the Empire's actions have real consequences.
Yeah, and Brasso, in the middle of all that, does something really heroic.
Oh, yeah.
What happens?
He sees Wilmon in danger.
Okay.
And he goes after him. He rescues him.
Wow.
And, I mean, it's incredibly dangerous. Yeah, it's really selfless.
It is. And it shows you that Brasso's not just about loyalty to his friends. He's about protecting everyone he cares about.
Yeah, he's a protector.
He is. And it's interesting because that rescue ultimately leads to his escape from Ferrix.
Okay, so who escapes with him?
So you have Brasso, you have Wilmon, you have B,
Okay.
Bix, who was rescued by Cassian,
Right.
and Jezi, another Ferrix resident. They all managed to get off-world.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a huge turning point for Brasso. I mean, he's not on Ferrix anymore.
Right.
He's out in the galaxy.
And he's part of the rebellion.
Yeah, and for those of us watching season 2, it's like, okay, where does he go from here?
Yeah, what's next for Brasso?
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I mean, how would you summarize Brasso? If you had to describe him to someone, what would you say?
Brasso's a tough guy, but he's got a good heart. He's loyal, he's resourceful, and he cares about people, even when he disagrees with them. And, you know, physically, he's a big guy, strong, you know, graying hair, green eyes. He looks like he's lived a life.
Right.
But I think what really defines him is his loyalty.
Okay.
He's loyal to Cassian, he's loyal to Maarva, he's loyal to Ferrix.
Yeah, and we see that over and over again.
And he's willing to put himself on the line for those people.
Absolutely.
And I think that resonates with people, you know? It's a quality we all admire.
Yeah, I agree. And for those listening, Brasso makes his first appearance in the very first episode of Andor, which is called Casa,
Right.
that premiered September 21st, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And he's played by Joplin Sibtang,
Yeah, Joplin Sibtang.
who does a phenomenal job, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Really captures that gruffness, that warmth.
Yeah, he's got that balance just right.
It's really cool. So we've come to the end of our Brasso deep dive.
Yeah.
And I think it's clear that he's more than just a background character.
Ah.
He's a vital part of this story. He's got this journey from loyal friend to someone who's actively involved in the rebellion. And it's a compelling journey. What do you think are the most interesting parts of Brasso's story?
Well, for me, it's his loyalty, even when he's unsure about Cassian's choices.
Right.
It's something we can all relate to, you know, having friends or family who make decisions we might not agree with, but we still love them, we still support them. And then there's his ability to act,
Right.
like sabotaging the tack pod. That shows he's not just a bystander.
Yeah, he makes things happen.
And then there's that softer side of him with B.
Right.
You know, the empathy. I think that's what makes him such a well-rounded character.
Totally. And with him escaping off-world, I mean, What's next for Brasso?
Yeah. What role is he going to play in the wider galaxy?
What's his place in the rebellion?
And how will he change and grow? Those are the questions I'm asking myself.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
And I think they're going to make for some really interesting storylines in season 2.
I think so too.
I mean, you have this guy who represents the everyday person caught up in extraordinary events.
Right.
And that's something that resonates with everyone, I think.
Absolutely. Whether you're a longtime fan or just getting into Star Wars, Brasso is a character you can connect with.
Totally agree.
So keep an eye on him. I think he's going to surprise us all.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive on Brasso, everyone.
It's been fun.
Yeah. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the Star Wars galaxy.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.